Hello and welcome to Trekommendations. However, this week things are a little bit different. Unfortunately, due to a family emergency, my guest had to cancel at the last minute, and therefore I don't have a new Trekommendation for you this week. But I didn't want to leave people empty-handed, so maybe I have something even better. There was a spin-off of this show that was a Patreon exclusive where guests would come back on and we would review their previous Trekommendation once I'd had the opportunity to experience it for myself. I never talk about my Patreon, therefore it's not really promoted, people haven't signed up, so I haven't made many of this style of episode. But if you like this and you'd like me to do more, then absolutely get on the Patreon and I will make sure that happens. But until then, sit back and enjoy the return of Leah Sci-Fi as we review her previous Trekommendation.
Loading program, Trekommendations.
Welcome, good friends and Patreons of Trekommendations. You know I'm Jason. We have a returning guest, Leah, only she's not a guest. She's returning as a host because we are revisiting a Trekommendation. So Leah brought on the Autobiography of Kathryn Janeway, the audiobook version. I have listened to that book, and now Leah is here to take over the show so we can discuss the book together. So I'm just going to hand over control of the ship to you, Leah. Just don't break it.
Captain on the bridge, first of all. So you always start this with some recalibration questions. So I think it's only fair that in return, I put you through 3 recalibration questions so you can feel a little bit of the pressure that you put us under.
Is it pressure? Is it pressure?
It's a little bit. We have to commit to those answers.
Yes. But you
Okay,
had
so
very
you ready
good
for your first
answers,
one?
I would say. You had some of the best answers, and not just because I agreed with most of them. So.
It was definitely because you agreed with them.
Okay.
So, are you ready for your first one?
Yeah.
Which is your favorite Enterprise?
Ooh. I think it's going to be controversial. So I always feel like, I know my mum loves the Enterprise D. I find it's just got a fat head. I just don't like. I like the inside, but the shape of it, as I've always felt, was a little bit, just a bit of a fat head. And I didn't like as much when we moved to the E and the kind of the more sort of sleek and movie-esque style. I think probably the Strange New Worlds Enterprise is my favorite, particularly because there was it was when it showed up in Discovery, and it was flashing between, there was the big battle, and we're going between the bridge of Discovery and the bridge of the Enterprise, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And every time they flash back to the bridge of the Enterprise, I just thought, this is the show that I want. Like, I want to be on this ship. You had this immediate contrast, and I really liked that. So I'm going to say it is the original Enterprise, but I'm quite happy with the sort of modern look to it as well, even if, yes, Pike's room is maybe too big.
Fair enough. I was going to say, with the Enterprise D, there's a lot of carpet.
Yeah.
I thought that might be a swaying point.
Yeah, so I can walk around barefoot if I want.
Okay, so the next one, which you may have touched upon actually in that last answer, is if you could be in any Star Trek series, which series would you be in and why?
Ooh. So I don't know if I would be in Strange New Worlds though, because it just feels a bit too much drama on the ship. I'd like to be investigating those. I would probably go next gen and go on the Enterprise D, because I just think I've had a similar conversation with, I've asked this question to a guest,
Okay.
and they were saying like the NX-01, because it's, you get to experience everything first, whereas the Enterprise D, I just kind of feel like it's sort of like a cruise ship at the same time, right? So you've got all the luxury, all the pleasures of Starfleet and the Federation life, but you also get to explore planets and be involved. And I think as much as I could maybe even try and convince them, look, is there any way we could get a slight refit on this? Could we just slim the head down a little bit? Is that okay? But also in a more serious nature, I kind of like the way the characters interact with each other, particularly when there's conflict. And I can think of specific examples. I think about when, Geordie did not like Barclay, didn't want to work with him, and Picard was like, "You have to figure this out. You guys have to work together. We don't make fun of him. We don't do this. We solve this problem." Or when Data was in command and Worf was his first officer, and they had this sort of, you'd never speak. I'd never heard Riker speak to Picard this way. I'd never hear you speak that way. Now you're the first one. And he was worried they damaged the friendship. And I just thought, like that's a crew I could, even if they would annoy you at times, you'd be able to solve the problems. You'd be able to talk things out. I think it would be strange to say, maybe a relaxed atmosphere. I'd quite like it. See,
Interesting. Okay. I think this third one's a little bit harder. You might have to do a little bit of thinking on this one. Okay, so this one, out of all of the Star Trek characters,
oh dear,
which one would you like to most be like or described as versus which character you actually like?
Actually like or am actually like?
Am actually like. Which one do you think you're most similar to versus which one would you like to be described as or deemed most similar to?
Oh, that is a tough question because I don't know if I'm really similar to any of them in reality. But who would I most like to be like? That's a tough question. That is a tough question. I'm like going through now 60 years of Star Trek to try and think. But I mean, it's like I wouldn't, there's the idea of like being a bit like Spock, but I do quite like to. It's not that I'm overly emotional, but I like to incorporate people's emotions into thinking, planning, and decisions and stuff. And when you're talking about things, there's the stats maybe about like this team should do really well in this, or this should happen because of the stats. And I'm like, yeah, but they've just had a baby recently, so maybe that's playing on their emotion, and maybe this and that. So I quite like to bring that in. So I don't think I'd want to cut off my emotions quite that way. But that being said, it wouldn't surprise me to hear someone say I was like Tuvok, because I'm quite like down the line with things as well. So, but that's not bad. Oh no, they would say probably Tom Paris. Or Harry Kim. There's probably going to be some like a mix of those, a Tuvok situation, but of Kim and Paris. Yeah. No. Okay, I think the person I like, and again, this folds into a bit of a hot take that I have as well, in that Captain Pike, but Series 2 of Discovery Pike. When he took over Discovery, and he was this, professional but also caring, inspirational. He wasn't hiding his flaw. When they put up his record on the screen, and he's like, "Leave it up. Look, I failed this class. Doesn't matter." I think that is who you want to be. Somebody who inspires confidence, but can also be authoritative when needed to, caring when needed to. I think that scene got me on board with Pike, like that kind of iteration of him, which is why I haven't loved the most recent portrayal of him in the last season of Strange New Worlds. But I'm hoping we get back that Pike. That's what I'm dreaming.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'd like to be like Pike. Someone would just say yes. Either it's someone on Voyager. It's either Tuvok, it's either Tuvok, Kim, or Paris, depending on who.
That's a real mix of characteristics.
Yeah, because I think when people first meet me, I am the more Tuvok side of it, where I'm just kind of like, well, this is what we need to do. It's got to be done this way. Let's just get it done. Da, 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 da. And then when they get to know me, it's like, oh, he's just always joking. He's not that serious. It's so I think it depends who knows me and how long they've known me. Okay, Leah, that was a horrible question. Thanks for that.
Do you know, I asked that question on my TikTok, and I had a really interesting mix. So mine was, I'd most like to be like 7 of 9, but I'm probably like O'Brien. Everything's broken, I'm hungry, and I have no idea where the music's coming from.
Yeah, that's a better answer. Yeah, I should be like, I'm probably like a Tribble.
I had time to think. I had time to think, though. You were put on the spot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny because they all have obviously exaggerated personalities to a degree, don't they? So it's quite hard because you're like, oh, I've got this element, but it's just not, and each character it's like turn up to 11 kind of, and then I'm like, well, it's not to that degree.
Yeah.
But yeah, there you go. I've given you a selection.
Interesting. So now it's only fair that we put the clock
no, I forgot
on
about
you.
this.
So just for a little bit of context for those listening, I thought it was only fair that Jason has the 60 seconds that we all have as guests, instead of telling us his recommendation, to actually give us a summary of his overall thoughts of my recommendation, which was the Autobiography of Captain Janeway, the audiobook version. And then after that 60 seconds, we will deep dive some of those points raised.
Yes. And this was a last minute decision. I hadn't got the clock ready because I didn't know we were going to do it this way. But you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I should do it this way. So do you want me to just go for it now then?
Go for it. Start the clock.
All right. Clock is ticking. So the Autobiography of Kathryn Janeway, read by Kate Mulgrew. Yes, it does transport you immediately back into the world of Voyager. You just hear her talk about things, and you're like, "Oh, this is real Star Trek. I'm back on Voyager." It deals with her early life from childhood leading up to Academy, her first couple of assignments before Voyager, which I thought was really excellent. She does detail certain things about events that happen in Voyager. That's quite quick to go through all those sort of 5 years, which was interesting. I have deeper thoughts on some of the stuff that she says there, and then it concludes with her as an admiral, and she sort of lets you know what's going on with the former crew, where she is in life now, and also some interesting developments in her family life as well. And so yeah, but overall very good. Look at that, 2 seconds extra.
Wow, round of applause. That was very well done.
Thank you. See, I wouldn't make other people do anything that I couldn't do myself.
This is true. This is true. You've proved yourself now.
Thank you. Yeah. Where do you want to start? Where do you want? Oh, are we going to go? I don't know if we should do. Should we just? Okay, there will be spoilers. I mean, if you're paying for the Patreon, or if this has come out as a bonus episode 10 years down the line, then if you've not listened to it by now, you don't really care. It was nice, actually. I wanted to say quite a few people have mentioned they've picked up this book now. I don't know if you'd seen that. So I had a number of comments of people saying, I didn't know about this, got it. I didn't know it was an audiobook. I've gone and got the audio version. So that's really nice. The show is working. But because of that, full spoilers from here on. I mean, obviously, do I jump to the very end? Do we ask?
So if those of you, hopefully you heard the first one. If you're here, you've probably heard the episode that I came on and recommended this. I kind of left you all on a bit of a cliffhanger of, there is a bit at the end of this book that threw me off and confused me, and I wouldn't be okay with it if Janeway was my bestie sending me WhatsApp audios. So I'm going to presume you're referring to that bit.
Well, are we talking about Amelia Janeway?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we are indeed.
Yeah, because the way it came across, when you were talking to me, and I didn't know, because I had no concept of that, nowhere to kind of anchor that into anything. So all I'm thinking about is her relationship with Mark, stuff with the dog, with them, with him moving on, and I was thinking, there must be something that he, has he ended up with one of her best friends, or is he something like this, or is it going to be that kind of it, or for a moment I thought maybe the sister, until you kind of realize the family dynamic she has.
Yep.
But it's nothing to do with Mark. Mark he's by the side, that's done and dusted, and
he's moved he's moved on so long ago.
And it was very amicable, and they're all pretty happy. And it's funny because earlier in the book she mentions that at this point in her life, she had her eggs frozen. And I remember thinking, weird thing to mention, interesting thing to mention, because I think I wouldn't find that so strange now, like to hear, a career-minded woman say, I made this decision to have some eggs frozen. But I would think, in the future, the technology and medicine we see in Star Trek, there's probably less concern, less issues with fertility, or going to be managed
Yeah.
more easily. So I was like, oh, it's odd that they've made this decision to say, that she's done that. Little did I know that was going to come up at the end. So basically, we find out that her sister's had another child. So her sister already had 2 children, I think. And we find out they've had a third child, Amelia Janeway. And then at the very end, and really dropped in at the end, like, oh, by the way, I'm giving the speech for the academy, graduates at Starfleet. And what a privilege, because one of them is Amelia Janeway, my daughter, because when they thought I was dead, they had a baby using the frozen eggs that I'd left. Wow.
The thing when I was listening to this audiobook, like, I didn't really have people that were listening to it at the same time. And I was like, I need someone to talk to about this.
You start asking people hypotheticals. Just imagine if I, frozen my eggs. Why are you freezing it? Well, just forget that bit for a second. And then I go on
Yeah.
holiday, but I go missing. Okay, yeah, I've been missing for like 5 years. All right. And so everyone thinks I'm dead. What would you do with my eggs? I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. Yeah. Oh, so that was,
Would you be okay with that? I would be okay with that personally.
well, I don't have eggs to speak of, so that's no. It's yeah. It's interesting, because actually, I found myself. I was surprised what moved me, and I don't know if it is hearing it in her voice, but some things really did, like, touch a chord emotionally with me, which surprised me, because some people will say I'm like Tuvok. I'm a cold, heartless, emotionless person. So it's quite strange that I was like, I'm not someone who cries in movies and films and things like that. My wife will be like blubbering by the side of me, and my son, and that, but me, I'm like, yeah, I was sad. Okay. But this, a couple of things did move it, but it was mostly mostly like when she's talking about her early life, particularly when she's young, like 14, 15, and she's kind of got the goals that she wants to do, and she's planning this and that. So my son's 12, my daughter's 6, and I'm looking at it very much from the perspective of the parents, and like, oh, my kids are going to be making these kind of decisions soon, and my kids are going to be doing that. And I found that really stirring and quite emotional for me, and I didn't expect that. So I was like, oh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. I think with this book, I loved the beginning. I loved the beginning. I liked the middle. I was kind of disappointed with the ending, if I'm honest. Partly because, and I mentioned this to you earlier, so I've just started reading Full Circle. This is a Voyager book that has been recommended on a previous episode, and it's all, it's Captain Chakotay and Tom Paris is the first officer, and it's like it's what's going. I'm very at the beginning, so I don't really know, but it's sort of what's happened once they're back to Earth, and now they're out on new adventures and stuff. Whereas this kind of wrapped up with like even those that stayed in Starfleet eventually sort of packed it in after a year, because it just wasn't the same. And it was, to me,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of a, yeah, I didn't love the ending, because I was just a bit like, well, I'd like to think that I would have liked that the ending was a bit more ambiguous, a little bit more like, well, some joined the crews, some continued in Starfleet, some were just happy to be home, and let's see
Yeah.
what the future holds for them. But it was a little bit definitive on different people's endings. which on the one hand I didn't love. On the other hand, it made me think, man, there's so many. You know, as much as we've got like Legacy and people want Star Trek Legacy and things like that, I do just think there are characters here where you could put certain people on, you know, on a ship to give you that gentle link back to other Star Trek. So you're like, oh, this is the daughter of Tom Paris and B'Elanna, and that's, you know, oh great, you know, she's on the ship and she's not the captain
Yeah.
of the ship, she's just on the ship as a crew member. You know, have some of this kind of generational Star Trek in there, and you'd be like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah.
And I think that would be nice in a future show. And there's quite a few characters that I was like, yeah, surely they, you know, once they got back and maybe they, you know, like Harry Kim, let's learn about what happens with his family down the line. So it doesn't have to, it could be his grandchildren, but it's like, you know,
Mhm.
it's just a nice link to, I kind of liked his end, you know, that he ended up with his fiance that he'd already had. Like, you know, his life really went just back to how it was before for him,
Yeah.
which I thought was nice. So how do you want me to do this? Do you want to break it down a bit? Can we start at the beginning? Oh, I've already said
Yes. Let's go from the
I
beginning.
like the early stuff. You know, as a dad, I found it very interesting to hear about her growing up, some of the tantrums, the, you know, the sports that she played. I liked the difference between her and her sister.
Yeah.
Even like the kind of resentment towards this. I mean, that felt very real to me. You know, the
Yeah.
baby comes
I
in
agree.
and suddenly you're not, you know, the object of attention, which does happen, but it's intensified by the fact that, you know, the daughter, her sister's a lot like her mum. She's a lot like her dad, but her dad is away all the time because he's in Starfleet. So who's at home? Mum. And mum's more like sister. So it's sort of like, you know, normally in the family, it's a bit like that. And dad's maybe at work, but he gets home at 5. And then from 5 o'clock,
Yeah.
he's, you know, you can see him sort of thing. So it's that, I thought that was an interesting dynamic. But she has a really nice family life, which I like, you know, with the grandparents and all of that. Like, it's just that I quite like that with Star Trek. That's one of the things I like of Star Trek is that optimism. That's again, you know, a little bit of the problem with kind of a lot of the new Trek being, you know, the Federation is evil, Starfleet's evil, everything is bad, and it's like I really like the,
Yeah.
you know, people were quite happy. Like, I had a good life as a kid. I grew up, went to school, didn't get, you know, there wasn't any weird sort of crazy bullying at school. There wasn't any. It was just a nice, fun, friendly childhood, and she worked really hard. Um,
It's wholesome.
yeah,
It's
very
very
wholesome.
wholesome.
That's the right word. Yeah. So I liked all of that. Um, I don't know. Was there anything particular that jumped out to you? I don't think there was anything. I mean, obviously,
I I loved actually in some areas of that, and I don't know if you picked up when she was voicing and narrating parts of it, you could almost hear adult Janeway reflecting in the tone of voice,
yeah,
like, and I didn't like that very much. You know, the way that she narrated it, I really loved. It made it feel like quite conversational, like you just sat
yeah.
listening to her tell you about her life.
I had this thought. If I ever got to ask her a question at, you know, a convention or something like this, I think the question I would like to ask is about this, about her narrating this book, because obviously
Mhm.
Janeway is a fictional character, but she played that character for many years. You know, she embodied that character. So I would be curious to know when she was reading the autobiography and reading about the childhood and getting in trouble or doing this or doing that, did that strike an emotional chord with her? Because, you know, you've brought this character to life on the screen. You are this character, and now you're sort of, you know, like reading about her relationship with her parents and some, there is, you know, as wholesome as it is, there's some stuff that's not great that happens. And like, you know, how did you feel when you're reading this book and you're putting emotion into it as well, and then you're reading about, you know, losing a loved one or something like that? Like, how did that hit you? Because
Yes.
yeah, I would be interested, because it's, they have this, you know, strange relationships with these characters that they've embodied. So I thought that was interesting. I like that.
It'd be interesting to know if that aligns with the history she had kind of mentally given herself whilst filming as well. So when she was embodying Janeway at the time of filming, did that align with the narrative she was envisioning for Janeway? It would have been very
Yeah.
interesting to see how that worked.
Did they ask her anything before when they were making the book? Did they say,
Yeah.
"Oh, did you have any thoughts about this?" Or yeah, because actually there are a few things in the book that I was a bit like either, "Oh, I didn't know that," or, "Oh, is that definitely the case?" Like, does that contradict something else I've heard somewhere else? And in which case, what's
Okay.
the truth? So like one thing that I could probably just look it up, and I haven't done it, is I didn't think Voyager was her first ship as a captain.
I think it was.
Yeah, well, that's what she said there. So
I think she was first officer. Might be worth a Google. I think yeah,
right,
that's how it is in the book
that's how
anyway.
it is in the
And I
book.
didn't.
Right,
Mhm.
well, I can cut a little bit of this out.
Just to make us look a little bit more competent.
No. I mean, just to save some of the.
You can do a SpongeBob a few moments
Yeah.
later.
Apparently, it was Yeah, it was Voyager. So
Yeah. It's interesting because when you watch The Caretaker back, you definitely don't feel like
no,
that. When she first enters and it's Captain on the bridge, she's comes on with so much confidence, like she's been doing this her whole career.
yeah, that's why I was. Oh, in fact, there's a Reddit thing that just says, "I'm shocked that Voyager is Janeway's first command." Yeah, I was just
Mm,
was under the impression always that she'd had, that like it's never noted, kind of, especially at the beginning, that this is the first day on the job and I get booted into the Delta Quadrant. Um, but that
yeah,
anyway, jumping ahead there. So that was interesting because we do hear the rest of her career. So yeah, very early stuff was interesting. The stuff at the academy was really nice.
I love that.
I loved that. It's giving me mixed feelings about the new show because I'm like, I don't think it will be that,
Mhm.
unfortunately. But it was nice, kind of, Boothby showing up. We've seen him on the screen many times, and just kind of how he is that soundboard, and how he helps, and the kind of the clever way that she relaxes through things. The pressure of being, an admiral's daughter, how people view that, is that why she's
Yeah,
in Starfleet? Is she getting help? And then how hard she pushes herself to make sure people know that's not the case, and to excel. Um, so that was all really nice. The relationship that she had there, and like the kind of friends and family all telling you it's the wrong thing, but you're so sure of yourself that you're pushing ahead. And then it's nice because we're getting the retrospective of from her being like, and obviously it wasn't, and I should have known it wasn't, and these things were
yeah,
happening, but I was ignoring them. And that's why it's so nice to have it as an autobiography and actually have the person sort of owning up to silly mistakes they made when they were young. So I did like all of that. Yeah, was there anything particular from the Academy pages that you liked?
I really liked the whole period at the academy because I think it showed a lot about how her character developed. So the determination, the
Mm,
stubbornness. Um, it's been a little while since I've listened to it, so you're coming into this a lot
a lot
fresher
fresher.
than me. But I remember a section of her storming home in the rain.
Yes,
Was it after the tennis
yeah,
match?
that was after the tennis match. I think that was before the Academy, but that was like, I think that was the conversation that her dad then had about, you saying you want to go to Starfleet, you want to be in the Academy, but you can't have this kind of behavior if you're going to be going there. Like, you need to. And it wasn't even that she was storming off and she was upset. It was how she didn't rely on her family at that point. She
Mm,
something bad had happened in her mind, and she kind of cut everyone off. And it's like, if you're in Starfleet, that crew, that's your family. You've got to rely on them. And which, obviously in her case became fundamental when she was
yeah,
stranded with them.
absolutely.
It was nice because, obviously as well, you would get to see certain relationships start to develop with characters, some that are very minor in the series, and then you are like, oh, that was a bigger loss than we realized, or stuff like that. I thought was quite interesting. Obviously, she does very well at the academy. She works very hard. We see about her friendship group. We see sort of, where they would go off to study and how they would pass the time and all of that. She graduates. She does very well. She has a mentor. I think she gets this mentor at the academy who plays a big role multiple times throughout her career.
Yeah.
Which is not. It's nice to kind of see that as well, because again, that's the thing she lost when she's in the Delta Quadrant and she's the captain, and everyone else is like, well, I've got my co-workers, my colleagues, my friends, we can chat and talk about all of these problems, and she's like, I'm the captain. The people I go to are the admirals, and they're not available, so I've got nobody. And so I think you feel
It does. I think it really highlights that difference, doesn't it? And it makes you care a lot more when they are then catapulted
yes,
over into the Delta Quadrant. It's like, oh, okay, I understand the gravity now of how alone Janeway is in this situation.
yeah. And then she graduates, obviously, and we start seeing her kind of in her early career and the different postings she gets, which I thought was interesting.
Okay.
I also thought how much worse I felt for Harry Kim after seeing the promotions she got, how quickly she got them, and sometimes the timing of when she got them. I was like, and we meet, she has a captain at one point that she says like almost caused her to leave Starfleet because he treated her so badly, and he was so bad, and yeah, he is horrible, but he's also like, one degree of, he's got a little bit of a point there, because he mentions one thing. So she starts as an ensign, obviously. She's she has, and she's serving under Tom Paris's dad is the captain. So that's interesting. We see her sort of get to know Tom as I think when he's like 6, 12, something like that. We see him multiple times.
Yeah.
She interacts with him, which on the one hand, that's really nice, right? That they have this established relationship. It explains why she went to him and kind of wanted to try and get him on the ship to help with this mission. Also makes the whole lizard babies,
I didn't even piece that together. That's very funny.
even more weird, because she knew him when he was a kid. But
yeah.
but it's establishing these different relationships, which is really nice. She loses her dad at one point. So once the kind of kids are grown up, he goes back to being a test pilot. There's an accident. I love the way that's all dealt with. The fact that like he has an accident. It's an accident. He dies in an accident.
Yeah.
But she blames the Cardassians, because the only reason they're testing these ships and the only reason they're doing this is because of this hostility with the Cardassians. And if it wasn't for the Cardassians, I thought that's so true, isn't it, of how people behave? Like, they've got to find someone to blame. It can't just be an accident, and it's, he's doing it because of the. So I love that, with the world building was really good. She kind of, she obviously goes home for the funeral and that, and then sort of has this quite long period of depression, really, until again her mentor kicks her out of it, which is good. She wants to come back and go back to her previous posting, and she ends up getting a promotion and being offered a promotion and a big, and that I did think was like, she's had a lot of time off and she's coming back in, and you're immediately promoting her. Why? Like that doesn't it doesn't make sense to me. Let's see, what's her emotional state like? You had one interview and you're like, oh, good to know you're back, ready to go. Here's a more power and authority. It's like, well, I don't know, maybe let's just give her 6 months,
There
just
does
see how it
definitely
goes.
feel to be just a little bit of privilege that did kick in
Yeah,
there.
absolutely. And it happens a couple of times, this kind of thing of like, oh, I'm going to apply for another posting. Okay, well, that means we have to promote you, because it's funny. It's not that she gets a promotion and then she's like, well, now I qualify for this job. It's like, oh, I want that job. Oh, okay, well, if you're going to have that job, we've got to promote you. I was like, is that how it works? So that's all Harry needed to do, was ask for a different job. He said,
Just like,
I'd quite like to be commander. Can I just, I'd like to be your XO. Oh, well, that means I need to
Swap.
promote you to
Yeah.
commander.
I mean, that's what Neelix did. He just asked to be ambassador, and then
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah, he just created jobs that didn't even exist. I'll be the chief morale officer. We don't have that. We do now.
Yeah.
So I found that quite interesting. But I mean, this is me nitpicking a little bit, but that's why I did find that just a bit like interesting that you had a pretty easy life when it came to promotion. And some people,
Mm.
and she even says about how much experience Harry had getting back, and what he went through in those. Because there's one point she talks about how when she was in this, when she was an ensign, she always wanted to be involved in the first contact, but they were never allowed to be involved in it because it had to be the experts,
Yeah.
the higher authorities, those that could handle it. Even though she knew everything about it, she wanted to do it, she couldn't do it. And it's like, well, but Harry's done it loads of times now. They've all done it, and she
Mhm.
even admits this. And it's like, what? Just
Yeah.
give the guy a pip. What is wrong with you? I realize, you're rationing replicate. She's probably thinking, oh, every pip I make is a cup of coffee I can't have, so I don't want to make too many pips.
Yeah, that's it.
Unless they're for Tom Paris, my best friend that I knew since he was 6. Oh,
That's it. It's true.
I
wanted to ask how you felt, because they do a lot of background on her original first officer
yeah, yes,
that we lose in the first
and
episode.
also the chief medical officer, the doctor that's her that she
Mhm.
invited on the ship, and like he had to resign from another posting to come because they'd all known each other
Yes,
before.
that's who I'm referring to. Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's interesting because we only see him in Caretaker, and he's horrible. Like the glimpses of him we get, because
Yep.
it's all just a plot device for showing how much they don't like Tom Paris.
Mhm.
Which is interesting because he also knew, because he served under the father, so he does know Tom from when he was a kid, and he knows, and I like that justification that he's like, for him, Tom's dad is like Picard for Riker. He has
Mhm.
this admiration for him, and Tom has caused him so much pain from his behavior, from getting kicked out of Starfleet, from then going to the Marquis, then getting caught, like all of this.
Yep.
And like that's why it's like, it's not, oh, Tom's a bad guy. It's, Tom has hurt this person I care about, who he should also care
Yep.
about because it's his dad. So I thought I really liked that. And the payoff obviously being like, she gets him on the ship, and then they get booted into the Delta Quadrant, and he dies immediately. And you're like, oh wow,
Mhm.
that's a loss that we never really realized
Yep.
that she had. And probably she didn't realize that when she was playing the character, to be honest.
No, she didn't.
But I thought,
And that's probably why it didn't seem like such a big deal.
yeah, well, she's like, oh, this hologram will do. A doctor's a doctor, right? That's no problem. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so I liked all of that. I found, and this is going to upset you and Linda and a few others, the way she talks about some decisions she made on Voyager
Mhm.
makes it feel worse than when
Go on, elaborate.
she just sort of like the Tuvix one, which is the obvious one. She does lament over that, and she's a bit like, well, I don't know if I made
Mhm.
the right decision or not, and but I had to do this, and the idea of like, I'd promised his wife I would bring him back safe, and I had to think about two people, and Kess was also really upset about it and all of that. So that one, actually, which is probably the most controversial one, is kind of was okay, like not okay, but she's sort of like, and I'm still don't know if I'm okay with this, and I don't know if I'll ever be okay with this. And I was like, oh, okay, good, some
Yeah.
self-reflection. But just she mentions other events that happen and other things they do, and it's just kind of like, well, we did this because I made that decision, and that's what we did. And it was like, doesn't feel like it was the right decision necessarily. And yes, I know the crew disagreed, but someone had to do it. Like, if we didn't do it this way, then and I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I probably the one that got me was the medical procedure for who was it?
Was it B'Elanna?
I know B'Elanna was
Was it that one?
involved, but I don't remember. It was B'Elanna, wasn't it? Yes.
Was it when the creature got on B'Elanna with the
Yes.
Cardassian doctor?
Yes. And so, and the point being that, you know, B'Elanna did not want that like she said she did not want it. And she did, and then Janeway was like, well, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. And I mean, if that happened in any hospital now, somebody had said, you know, we
Yeah.
have the right to choose, right? We can refuse certain medication, we can refuse certain procedures. We're given we're told the consequences, and you know, and you know, people go to court over this kind of thing because they're like, it's my right to choose
Yep.
how. And I just felt like, wow, that was quite, you know, that's quite a big step to take. And she didn't feel that remorseful about it. It was just kind of like, she was
No,
just
she
like, I
doesn't.
had to balance. And for me, you know, a couple of times she talks about the fact that, like, well, if we don't have enough people on the crew, we can't get home. So I had to make a decision. We need this many people on the crew, and, like, you know, we couldn't do it without B'Elanna, so we need her. So even though she doesn't want this, and the doctor doesn't want to do it, and this and that, I'm going to do that. And even, like, you know,
Yep.
deleting subroutines from the doctor, changing things, like hiding memories. It doesn't feel. It feels sometimes a bit like, oh, and I got caught.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Yeah, I agree.
But and that did just sour a little bit my opinion of her to a degree on those things. I was thinking, okay, I would have preferred that you were a little bit more tormented by some of these decisions that you'd made. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the sections that just cover essentially Voyager's journey, that's my least favorite section of the book, because it also felt to me at times we were just whizzing through episodes, like summaries. So that is my least favorite section of the book. But for me, all the stuff that kind of come around it made up for that in spades.
Yeah.
But I agree, that was my least favorite section of the book.
Yeah, because and it's kind of, I understand it's a difficult thing, right? Because they're not going to recap, you know, all those episodes of Voyager and say, well, look, here's everything that happened while I was on there. And at the same time, if they don't mention anything, it's a bit hand wavy kind of, you know. But although I actually thought you could have even put in the kind of a line about how, you know, all the debriefings we've had since returning from the Delta Quadrant have been published and are a matter of public record, so you can read all of that. But here are a few of my personal thoughts about a couple of decisions that I've made that people have asked me about. And maybe she mentioned Satuvic's thing, and she mentioned, you know, a couple of things. But yeah, having to kind of be like, and then this, and then we did this one, and then we read these people. And you're like, yeah, we know, we've seen the show. I mean, amazing if
Yeah.
you've not seen the show and decided to listen to this. You know, I was thinking about that. I was like, maybe I should play someone the start up until she takes over Voyager, and
And then start.
then now go and watch all of Voyager, and when you finish, come back and I'll let you listen to the rest of the book.
That would be a really cool thing to do.
Yeah,
You'd definitely be far more invested in that first
I
episode.
might see if I can do it with my kids.
Do it.
Just see if I can get them to watch Voyager. That's the difficult part. But yeah, that was probably my least favorite bit, but it was, you know, it was nice to hear her thoughts on some of these things, and about some of the crew members and things like that was nice, but also a little bit, you know, redundant. We already knew a lot of this stuff, and there's no context to it. You're not like, you know, when you're just saying, well, we did this, you're not seeing all the stuff that was happening around that time in the episode, and you know, that some of these decisions were quite labored and were quite hard, and she did go back and forth on and she, you know, went to Tuvok. He shows up so much in this book.
He really does.
Which is also coming up with another little hot take I'm having recently, where I think, is he, you know, we always go to Spock as being like the most sort of the best Vulcan we know in Starfleet, and there's part of me is thinking maybe it's Tuvok. Maybe
It is
you know,
Tuvok.
especially after I was watching an episode of TOS the other day, and you know, Kirk loses this woman that he loves, and Spock just puts his hand on it and is like, forget. I'm like, I we don't talk about that, but that's,
No.
you know. And I was watching Undiscovered Country
Yeah.
earlier today, and he's interrogating her, just pulling out names out of her mind, and I'm like, this guy's pretty evasive sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely is. At least with Tuvok, he always asks for consent
Yes.
predominantly before any melding.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I like him.
I
Also,
wanted
Janeway
to
gets promoted
ask.
way over. Like he meets Janeway as an ensign, and he's a lieutenant. She gets all the way up to
Yeah,
captain, and he's a lieutenant commander at that point. Like,
yeah,
wow, poor guy.
it's insane. But Janeway, it's the Janeway effect.
Yeah, yeah. What did you want to ask?
I wanted to ask you about Mark
Right.
because that man moves on so quickly from like not just Janeway. Um,
Yeah.
and that was one thing that when I read the book, and you can elaborate because this is a lot fresher in your mind, but the bit that kind of shocked me was how okay Janeway and her family were with how quickly he moved on from his previous partner before then getting with Janeway.
Yeah, I think, was it 18 months? Did they say that he'd been a widower?
It was incredibly
Yeah,
quick.
but and it's interesting as well because also she seems to have been like the first kind of rebound, or like not rebound, but you know what I mean. Like he
Yeah.
hadn't been engaging with people. He'd kind of, he was being invited by her family, her sister and her partner to come out because he was so sad about what happened with his wife and all of that. And that was 18 months. And now he's coming out and he meets her, and then this sort of relationship develops. Yeah, it I don't know. Well, especially with how long they live in the Star Trek universe, so probably it's even shorter than we realize. It's funny. I don't know. I have met people. I know people that lost a partner, and in what seems like a relatively short time did end up with somebody else.
Mhm.
So it's hard, isn't it, to know that there obviously is a hole there that maybe you're more ready to fill because it's you're kind of, you feel it more than just somebody who's single. That it's like,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like a bad breakup that you're like, oh, I need time to heal from this bad breakup. It's like, oh, I love this person now. That I mean, the harder thing I think is, that person, becomes almost perfect in their mind. So it's harder for Janeway than it
Mhm.
is for him, I think, because she has to live up to, and that was nice that he was like, but you're Janeway, you're not her. Like, you're so different.
Yeah.
And I think I found her not wanting the engagement a bit weird. That was more strange, that he proposed multiple times and she's kind of like, oh, but I don't know if it's gonna, and all he's saying is like, look, we're
Mhm.
already doing it. This is, I just want
Mhm.
the same thing we've got now, but we're married. Like, he wasn't telling
Yeah.
her you've got to retire. He wasn't saying any of this stuff. He was just saying, but can we just be even more official than we are now? And she was just
Yeah.
constantly like, oh, but how will we make this work? And he's like, it is working. It's working right
Yeah.
now. What's the problem? And I thought they found that a bit weird, and maybe like that had to be written in because obviously they weren't engaged, or they
Mm.
weren't married when she took over the ship.
I suppose it gave the opportunity as well for her to have a sense of regret, like, oh, I
Should have.
should have said yes. I should have. But I think for me, the reason it felt like he'd moved on very quickly is because then when Janeway vanishes,
Yeah,
he moves on again.
yeah. But that actually took him longer that time, though. I think because they
Was
said,
it longer?
yeah, I think so, because it was a couple of years, because I think they said,
Okay.
because she said something like, oh, we'd only briefly missed it. So from when they started to be able to send letters, it'd
Mm.
only been shortly before that he'd. So I don't know, was that 2-3 years in that maybe they got to that point that they could send
Yeah.
some? So I don't know, 2 years, 2.5 years, so slightly longer, but you know,
It feels like it felt to me like a lot like this man that's a side character has had 3 relationships
yeah,
in this book.
yeah.
It felt like a lot, and
It
yeah, I
feels
just
more
find it
like he
interesting.
should be the subject of a true crime podcast, because it's like this
Yeah,
guy,
it really does.
he just keeps getting these women and then they disappear. It's sort of,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did find it interesting, kind of how Janeway kind of justified he had moved on, and the fact when she was realizing, is he ready to be in a relationship with me, was very much down to he's got a lust for life. He doesn't want to waste time.
Yeah.
But that's where, for me, if Janeway was my bestie with my WhatsApps, that's where I'd be like, does this man just need to be in a relationship? Because
Yeah.
but
He,
it was just an interesting situation.
no, he does though. He's absolutely. It feels like I don't remember how long he'd been married, because they hadn't had kids because they'd been waiting, kind of thing. But they'd been married for a while,
Yeah.
and it feels like, did he move out from home and get married and move in with her, and now he's like, I can't cook,
Mhm.
I can't clean, I need someone. So I'm
Yeah.
just jumping from relationship to relationship because that's the only thing I know how to do. Yes.
Yeah.
And even they took her dog.
I know, right? See, I'd be salty about that. I'd be really salty.
Be like,
I'd
oh,
be like, my dog's gone to my ex and his new
yeah,
missus. I've got a kid that I didn't give consent to have.
yeah. Be like, look, I'll give you this kid if you give me back my dog. Yeah.
So, what did you think post Voyager? What did you think of that section of the book?
Again, I found myself the Tom and Balana stuff. I really hit me quite hard. That I
Okay.
was like, wow, that's quite. I didn't like that he quit, kind of thing. There was like a nice kind of closure there of sort of why he didn't need his dad's approval anymore and this and that. I like that their relationship was all restored. I liked that like Balana stayed in Starfleet. I thought that was great,
Mhm.
and that she ended up getting kind of that honorary doctorate because she never actually graduated. I thought that was really nice, like a nice little touch, because we do hear
Yeah.
about her in season 1, talking about like dropping out of Starfleet and why she didn't finish the academy, and I think even there was like a line about how I think like Janeway said one of her instructors had said that she was like the best. She was the best he'd ever had, sort of thing. And she's like, but at the time he
Mm.
was like always bad to me and pushing me and kind of. So I thought it was just like that was a really nice conclusion to her story, and the fact that they had, I think, 2 kids in the end, didn't they? They had the one and then they had another one, and
Yeah,
also
I think it was two.
because she talks about how the son, it's like Balana, who is so stern and angry and aggressive, but then when she's with the child, is like the most gentle, soft, kind of sweet person, and how shocking that is. And I thought that's really nice when you do see those kind of that makes the characters feel more real, because you're sort of
Yeah.
seeing how they would experience events that we see in the real world, of like, we've probably all got people we know that had a baby and completely changed because suddenly they were like,
Mhm.
oh, and sometimes it doesn't even happen. They're carrying the baby and they don't change, and then they hold it and they're like, oh, my whole personality has
Everything's
shifted because
changed.
suddenly I've got this baby. And I thought that was, nice to see that. Didn't like Chakotay just kind of wandering around. That was a bit of a
Yeah.
sad ending for him. I think I'm going to enjoy seeing him maybe, in the captain's chair and actually getting to, which also lines up more with kind of Prodigy and what we've seen there. So I
Yeah, I
I,
agree.
I just think I think there were a few, they kind of they took some swings. Some of them landed and some of them didn't. And I'm like, the ones that did land, was that enough for me to be like, I'm glad they did kind of write conclusions for everyone? Or would I
Mhm.
think I would have preferred that it was left with stories still to tell. Kind of, we got here,
Okay.
and maybe she touched, a simple thing of like, yes, all the Marquis that wanted to remain in Starfleet, they were all allowed to stay. Some chose to, and some didn't. So we're like, okay, that's good, because obviously that's a question mark we've got about their situation.
Mhm.
And then, but let's talk about my family and the things that went on with this daughter that I didn't know I had. Da 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 da. Okay. And as for the others, well, their stories are out there. You can go and find out sort of by yourself, and just leave it for other people to
Yeah.
pick up stories about them. Um, so I think that would have been, that's my only sort of, I just, the end was a little bit meh. But overall, I like it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't mind it reaching conclusions purely because we just point blank didn't get that in the series.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, thank you for at least giving us some conclusions. So I gave it a bit of grace there.
Yeah. No, I get that. And because that was the frustration of like, we're home. And we'll do something. And you're like, oh, but what you go? But I feel like if I'm already reading now expanded media, I'm going to be reading, like, I'm that kind of person, if you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
like, either do it on the screen for the people that are like, I watch Star Trek and that's that's where I begin and end with my fandom. Or, oh, we're going to expand it out. We're going to give you the autobiography. If you're reading the autobiography of a fictional character, you're pretty deep at this point. And
This is true.
I think, like, at this point, just let us. Only because I'm thinking about other books and other shows and other things I've seen, and I'm just like, well, now we have discrepancies. Now we have things that don't line up. Whereas if we just left it a bit more vague, then we could see, other authors, other creators can fill in those blanks. So that's my hot take on that, my lukewarm take on that. But overall, I did really enjoy it. I think I listened to it in about 2, maybe 3 sittings. Like, I just
well done.
went through it quite quite and having to make
Yeah.
mental notes, like, oh, I need to make sure I remember this because I've got to tell Leah about this. And when I finished, I was like, we need to talk because the Amelia thing is absolutely, like, shocking. And has it ever been mentioned anywhere else at any other time? I've never heard it. I'd never heard it before.
No.
It shocked me.
And no one talks about it in Community either.
Not yet. They will now.
Now they are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but overall, yeah, very good. Enjoyed it. I think people will like it.
Would you recommend it?
Yeah, I would recommend it. Especially, I don't know if I would recommend the book for people to go and read themselves, because I definitely think it is the narration that puts it over. That's what makes it feel. Because I guess there's lots of stories that deal with Voyager getting home and what happened and things like that. What makes this feel a bit more authentic, even if maybe you prefer other versions, is her narration. So it does feel like it feels genuine. It feels real because she's reading it, and then that gives it, an extra couple of points, definitely. So yes, if you've not already listened to it, I'd say go and listen to it. But also, I'm so sorry that we spoil every moment of this book.
There's no point. We've basically
Yeah.
just narrated it ourselves.
Yeah, if you don't want to buy it, then just listen to this and fill in the gaps. Good. Well, where do we go from here, Leah?
Well, normally I would ask you for things that you would like to have recommended.
Yeah.
However,
I do that.
I think you get enough
I
of
do
it
it on a
this
weekly
show.
basis. That is the show, isn't it? So no. Well, if I may take the reins, if I may have the con once again.
Captain on the bridge.
I will
give you your chair back.
Yeah. I would just say, well, thank you for coming on to do this with me. It's been a fun experiment. I quite like it. So I think more of these will come. So people now have to have that in the back of their mind. It's like, oh, I've got to recommend something. Oh, and there's a chance I might have to do another one and hear hear his opinion on it. So I'm currently working my way through a book, so that might be the next one. But maybe some games might be coming up, so I might be able to play those as well. So that'd be fun. But thank you so much. And if people have listened to this and enjoyed it, then also thank you for paying for it. I appreciate that. If not, even if nobody listens to this, I'm still glad we had the conversation, because I had
Me too.
I
We
had
needed
thoughts.
the debrief.
I had thoughts and feelings. I'm like, who can I tell about this? So now we know. So everybody say thank you to the lovely Leah Sci-Fi. Yeah, well, definitely this will be up way before you've gone to Vegas. So if you're like, I didn't mind spending a few pounds or dollars to support Jason's channel, and I've got a few more to spare, Leah is currently planning, scraping, saving, trying to make her way to Vegas for the Star Trek convention there. and you can buy her a coffee and support that journey. So do that. Leah Sci-Fi on everything, right? On TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah. Leah Sci-Fi anywhere and it'll come up.
Across the
And
board.
the link for Buy Me a Coffee is in my bio.
On everything as well now.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Well, thank you very much. Usually I end it by going, and I'll be back next week with another guest and another recommendation. I will, but that's irrelevant to this. I'll be back next month, hopefully, with another one of these reviews. So we're going to be, the catalog will be building. So if you listen to this, a couple of years in the future and you're like, wow, there's a whole back catalog of things here. Congratulations. Well done. That was the smart move. Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you again, Leah.
Ending program.